I was standing in my office facing what felt like an impossible choice. On one side, a team member who was struggling and needed compassion and grace. On the other side, a project with non-negotiable deadlines that demanded excellence and accountability. The old me would have thought I had to choose. Be the tough leader who demands results, or be the caring leader who prioritizes people. Push for excellence or show compassion. Be firm in my standards or be flexible with my expectations. Yet that day, I realized something that shifted how I lead. The most powerful leaders aren't the ones who choose sides in these tensions. They're the ones who learn to hold space for the and. Today, I'm sharing the last piece of who I am as a connected leader. Someone who learned that your values aren't rigid rules to follow, but dynamic litmus tests for how something is working for you. When you master this, you don't just become a better leader, you become the kind of leader who creates transformation. I'm Dr. Cara, and this is the final episode of Who is Dr. Cara? Over the past 5 episodes, we've journeyed together through my evolution as a connected leader. We started with a crying toddler on a plane who taught me that connection trumps control. We explored how I stopped hustling for worthiness and learned to trust my inherent value. We discovered my elevator epiphany about creating space for authentic connection. We dove into managing up as serving everyone. We explored how growth mindset keeps me curious and evolving across all facets of life. Today, I want to share what might be the most important discovery of my entire leadership journey. How I learned to navigate the polarities that used to paralyze me, and how my values became not just my guide, but my litmus test for everything. Here's what I've discovered. Connected leaders aren't the ones who avoid contradictions. They're the ones who learn to hold space for them. Let me share an example of a leadership trap that used to exhaust me and see if you recognize yourself in this story. You're passionate about excellence, but you also value compassion. You want to be firm with standards, but flexible with people. You need to communicate directly, but also maintain emotional intelligence and balance. For years, I thought these were problems to solve. I believed I had to choose. Am I the leader who prioritizes results or relationships? Do I value consistency or adaptability? Do I lead with my head or my heart? I would swing like a pendulum. One day it'd be all about excellence and accountability, pushing for results, holding high standards. Then I'd feel like I was being too harsh. So the swing to the compassion side of being understanding, flexible, and maybe too flexible. This back and forth was exhausting. My team never knew which version of me they were going to get. And honestly, neither did I. When I completed my leadership coaching executive certificate from Georgetown University, everything clicked into place. I realized something profound. These weren't contradictions to resolve. They were polarities to navigate. My values, they weren't rigid rules I had to follow perfectly. They were a dynamic litmus test, a way to check in with myself and ask, how is this working for me? How is this serving the people that I lead? How is this aligning with who I want to be? Here's why learning to hold space for contradiction is absolutely crucial for connected leaders. When you get trapped in the either or thinking, you create cultures where people have to choose sides instead of finding solutions. When I was swinging between excellence and compassion, my team members started walking on eggshells. They didn't know if they would get demanding Dr. Cara or understanding Dr. Cara. They couldn't predict how to approach me with challenges or mistakes. I've also trained in Dare to Lead by Brene Brown, and here's what I learned from that training. When collective values are identified and the behaviors associated with those values are collectively defined by a team and then honored, it transforms culture, engagement, accountability. Leaders who can't navigate polarities create environments where people feel like they have to be perfect or hide their struggles. Where innovation dies because people are afraid to take risks that might not align with whatever side the leader is on that day. For me personally, I was exhausting myself, trying to be consistent in the wrong way. I thought consistency meant always responding the same way. But real consistency means always leading from your values, even when those values create tension with each other. Let me take you back to that moment in my office, the struggling team member and the non-negotiable deadline. Here's how I learned to hold space for the and. Instead of choosing between compassion and excellence, I realized I could embody both. I could be deeply compassionate about their struggle and maintain high standards for the work. I could be flexible with the process and firm about the outcome. The conversation became, I can see you're struggling and I want to understand what support you need. And we have a commitment to our stakeholders that we need to honor. Let's figure out together how to get you the help you need while ensuring we deliver excellent work. This is when I discovered that my values, communication, excellence, integrity, reliability, consistency, balance, emotional intelligence, weren't competing with each other. They were informing each other. What I found to be the most profound part, I realized that values can change and evolve. They're not carved in stone. They're a litmus test that helps me check in. Is this working for me? Is this serving my team? Is this creating the culture that I want to build? When I started holding space for contradictions instead of trying to resolve them, something beautiful happened. My team started doing the same thing. They could be learners and experts. They could be vulnerable and strong. They could ask for help and take initiative. This is how you create real psychological safety, not by eliminating tension, but by creating space where people can hold multiple truths at once. Some of you might be thinking, this sounds complicated, Dr. Cara. How do I actually practice this? Here's the beautiful thing. Everything we've talked about in this series has been preparing you for this moment. Remember the mother on the plane? She held space for both structure and connection. The elevator experiment. I learned to be both professional and authentic. Managing up, I serve both my leaders and my team simultaneously. This is what connected leadership actually looks like, holding space for the tensions that make us human. Being passionate about your mission and compassionate with your people, maintaining high standards and creating psychological safety. Think about the polarities you're facing right now. Where are you trying to choose sides instead of holding space for the and? Where could your values serve as a litmus test to help you navigate rather than a rigid rule to follow? What if the tensions you're experiencing aren't problems to solve, but invitations to grow as a connected leader? Let me give you the framework that ties everything together. This is how values-driven connected leadership actually works. Receive. You receive polarities and tensions as information, not problems. You get curious about what both sides are trying to serve. Perceive. You perceive your values not as rigid rules, but as a dynamic litmus test. You ask, how is this working? What needs to be honored here? Respond. You respond by holding space for the and. You create solutions that honor multiple values and serve multiple needs. This is who I am, a connected leader who learned that the goal isn't to eliminate contradictions, it's to dance with them, to hold space for complexity, for multiple truths, for the beautiful mess of leading human beings. My values of communication, excellence, integrity, reliability, consistency, balance, and emotional intelligence don't compete with each other. They inform each other. When something isn't working, my values help me course correct, not by becoming rigid, but by staying true to what serves everyone best. When you master this, you don't just become a better leader. You create cultures where other people can hold space for their own contradictions. Where teams can be both innovative and reliable. Where people can be both vulnerable and strong. As we close this journey together, here's what I want you to know about who I am. I'm someone who learned that connected leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about being whole. It's about embracing all the contradictions that make us human and learning to lead from that complexity. I'm passionate and compassionate. I value excellence and embrace imperfection. Stand firm in my values while staying flexible in my approach. I lead with my head and my heart because I have learned that the end is where the magic happens. Your values aren't meant to limit you. They're meant to liberate you. They're your litmus test for creating the kind of leader you want to be and the kind of culture you want to cultivate. I want to hear from you. What polarity are you trying to resolve that you could instead learn to navigate? Drop a comment and share your biggest takeaway from this entire series. Here's the truth about connected leadership. It's not about having all the answers. It's about holding space for all the questions. It's not about choosing sides. It's about creating space where everyone can show up as their whole, complex, beautifully contradictory selves. That's who I am. That's who we all can become. Connected leaders who change the world by holding space for its beautiful complexity.